Well, I'd like to start with my gratitude to Franco and Tom for this wonderful opportunity to be with all of you this evening and express my gratitude for the work you do as mentors. You are my heart feels as a mentor, inner city mentor myself, that you're transforming futures, you're saving lives, you're increasing protective factors, and I just want to start with honoring every single one of you here, and thank you for your investment of time this evening. So we will go ahead and get started. So this is actually through PACE's connection is the what all of this is. So my name is Dana Brown, and I am a fifth generation immigrant born with unearned privilege on the land of Sauk and Meskwaki. I'm an Iowa farm girl. Now I reside on the beautiful land of Kumeyaay Nation, and humbled and honored and grateful to be with you this evening. We're going to have a dialogue together. There's 4 learning objectives. There's 4 breakouts after each learning objective. The breakouts will be 6 minutes each, and then we'll come back for invitation for a whole group, anything that you feel is salient. There are some videos that are embedded that they were shared with you earlier. We'll have kind of a high level on them. We're not going to watch the videos. The placeholders are there for you if you'd like to access the videos, and I'll go ahead and kind of share a high level of what that video is about. So that's some of the roles that I have as a community organizer. I've been a community organizer in City Heights for 26 years, and I'm just really blessed and humbled and honored through cultural humility to be learning from those that I've served over the years. I was on the City of San Diego Commission on Gang Prevention and Intervention for 11 years, and I myself have never been arrested. So the reentry people, the ex-felons and ex-gang members have been some of my greatest teachers. Many people in City Heights have been some of my greatest teachers, and I've started a lot of different leadership things in our city, elementary, middle, high school. Inside the Mid-City Police Division, we partnered with the juvenile services team. My biggest passion is dismantling systemic racism and decolonizing, and I'm doing that in a plethora of different ways. So we want to honor the land that all of us are on. Here in San Diego County, we have more federally recognized tribes than any county in the United States, and we want to honor the indigenous wisdom of the ancestors of the contemporary lands, of all the tribal nations that are part of all throughout our world. Actually, right now we're lifting up San Diego County and the survivance within them, the wisdom within them that resides with every single one. I'm an ally with several tribal nations now. Want to honor and acknowledge every single one of you for your ancestors and what's in your DNA, your survivance, possibly cultural trauma, historical trauma, and survivance within every one of you that has brought you to where you are in the world this evening. You can click on that link at the bottom and put in a zip code. It's a native-run website, and they will share with you about those tribal lands of whatever zip code. You see it on the bottom of my signature line. And so here's what we're going to experience together this evening. Reflective practice, including self-care and awareness, is so essential to being a helping professional. How can we deepen that understanding of our physiologically through a holistic lens of well-being, and then some practical applications, takeaways for you to start using this evening, tomorrow. Consider sharing with your mentees of mindfulness practice and soothing strategies. And then how do we create this culture of boys to men mentoring? And I want to give a shout out. When I first met all of you, it was pre-COVID, NCRC, off of like Southeast. And I was so blown away. Tom, am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, I go by Tom. Thank you.
Okay, because pronunciation is very important. Thank you. When I met Tom and Franco, that whenever that was, and they were just talking about the culture of boys to men mentoring, I was blown away. So I'm really inspired with Boys to Men Mentoring. And when they reached out, I said, absolutely, I would love to hang out with all of you again. So our first learning objective together. So everything that we do, and some of you may have been through Pace of Science training before, brief recap. So everything that we do in this Pace of Science global movement is through the lens, the 5 parts of Pace of Science, which is the epidemiology, the neurobiology, biology, epigenetics, and resilience building. And that's that holistic lens of how we serve as a helping professional and how we take care of ourselves with our own self-care. So the epidemiology, you'll see that ACEs primer, which is a very high level on the original ACE study. The epidemiology, because the original ACE study was only in utero to age 18, and we all know very well that trauma can be across the lifespan. So WHO, World Health Organization, has done extended studies literally all over the world. So this research, the epidemiology of this public health model, we are standing on a granite foundation. No one could refute or dispute this research. And here in San Diego County, we're ground zero. Dr. Vincent Paletti in La Jolla was one of the co-principal investigators and has become a very, very dear friend of mine. And so that research is the largest public health study in our nation that millions of people still have not heard of. Well, what happens in our brain neurologically when a child, youth, adult, elder does not feel safe? We'll have a little bit of dialogue about that. Then what can happen on our body when we're in that heightened state of chronic trauma, the short and long-term health consequences from that chronic stress. Epigenetics, that science and research is really exciting because it's proving in our DNA, the moment a female finds out she's pregnant, she's carrying in her DNA her ancestors and carrying forward in her DNA her children's children's children. So there's a science-backed, research-backed linkage with all of these things. And then we always want to be strengths-based. So resilience building is so important because our brain is neuroplastic, has gray matter, and our brain and our body want to heal. So it's that lens of the 5 parts that we frame everything. This ACEs primer, I think it's like a 6-minute video. Dr. Folletti's in it, Dr. Robert Onda, the other co-principal investigator, and it really lifts up beautifully, very succinctly, the original ACE study. 17,337 people went through that in Kaiser Permanente here in La Jolla out of an obesity clinic. And it's groundbreaking research, and now it's permeating out into schools and social service providers, mentoring groups, etc. Co-chair of the San Diego Trauma Informed Guide Team since 2015, and we created this graphic of different types of trauma, which are acute, chronic, complex, systems-induced, and vicarious. And acute trauma is a single, and I'm positive that all of you have heard different aspects of this from your mentees. So an acute trauma, single one-time traumatic event that's limited in time. My brother fell over dead from a massive heart attack in 2009 at age 53, single one-time traumatic event. It could be a homicide, it could be completing suicide, it could be tragic car accident, just a single one-time traumatic event. Chronic, which many of us as mentors and helping professionals, a lot of the people that certainly I have over the years in City Heights, my heart feels that many of you also, they may be living in chronic trauma, which could be living in domestic violence, living in a food desert, living in an over-policed community, living in being bullied at school, being groomed for human trafficking, having a loved one incarcerated, having a loved one deported. It is multiple traumatic events that one person may be experiencing, and that's their reality, their normal. Well, complex trauma is that exposure to that ongoing chronic trauma and what impact that has on the well-being. You think of any aspect of stress and what that can create, from migraines and COPD and heart disease and cancer, diabetes, on and on and on, has a source right back to trauma. Systems-induced trauma, the one I am the most passionate about transforming, because I feel that our tax dollars perpetuate every single day re-traumatizing already traumatized people. Unfortunately, there organizations like Boys to Men Mentoring and absolutely many organizations that I'm blessed to collaborate with nationally are transforming sustainably their organization. We'll really lift that one up in the fourth learning objective. And then AM systems-induced trauma, thinking of your mentees, are things like seeing their mother arrested with handcuffs and put into a cop car, seeing their father be put, or a male figure be put into incarceration, having a loved one deported, seeing what the systems, which should be designed to help people heal. Everybody, it's 0% of this whole movement is about people not being held accountable. Everybody should be held accountable, everyone, with compassion. What happened to them? And we'll have another slide that'll kind of show what's happening neurologically in the brain, physiologically in the brain when we're traumatized. The vicarious trauma is what we're really striving to lift up in this particular professional development and help all of you have some tools, because you're all experiencing vicarious trauma. We're human beings and we care about who we serve and we care about ourselves, we co-care about our colleagues, and we cannot help but experiencing vicarious trauma. The very, very, very end of it is also vicarious resilience. And so we'll lift that one up in the co-care because all of us are human. And when someone is telling us about something, they were raped, they were beaten, they're being groomed for human trafficking, whatever it is, it hurts. It hurts and we want to help. And so vicarious trauma is really important to be aware of. The pair of ACEs, when we look at where are people born, if you're serving a mentee that is born in City Heights or Southeast, what kind of environment are they being born into versus a mentee possibly in Del Mar, La Jolla? Completely different community environment that they're even growing up into. So when we look at the above the tree, above the ground, and we see these different aspects of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, it's really imperative that we as helping professionals are very aware of adverse community environments. The vast majority of youth and families that I have mentored have taught me, mostly City Heights, have taught me by and large, they don't trust the systems. So you're that bridge, you're that trusted protective factor between services helping families with things they need and who's being served. You're that bridge. And so your roles are so important with the roles that you have with your mentees. Dr. Bruce Perry, it's an 18-page, he wrote this about the cost of caring. And when I learned about ACEs back in 2005, before that, when we know better, we do better. Before that, I had a lot of these. And maybe not 100% of them, but I definitely had a lot of these emotional, physical, personal, or workplace indicators. Well, now, when we know better, we do better. And I've been doing these trainings around the nation for so many years. I know what's happening in my brain when I'm activated. And I will never say I'm healed. I'm healing. I still get activated. I just know what's happening in my brain, and I know how to soothe my body and calm any kind of anxiety I'm feeling so much more expeditiously because I'm trained on the pace of science. Oh, fun thing about Dr. Perry. So you may have heard he and Oprah Winfrey wrote a book called What Happened to You? And Oprah Winfrey shared that learning about ACEs was the single most important thing she learned in her entire lifetime. Changed 100% of how she treated her staff, her loved ones, her home life, everyone around her. Grocery store, didn't matter. And so when she and Dr. Perry wrote What Happened to You, they actually have a book club that you can sign up for. Dr. Perry was on Pace's Connection. Oprah Winfrey was actually on Pace's Connection in April, over a year ago. So this was another video, and she has a lovely accent, and it's really two peers, two high-level, I think she's a clinical psychologist, I believe. Stress, trauma, and work. How do you look after yourself? And so should you not have had an opportunity yet to view the videos, Tom had sent you, I think there's 5 of them, and he had sent you a separate email that had the links. I wanted to have them as a placeholder in here because these 2 individuals in this particular video really do lift up what can happen on your brain and your body, your psyche, your physiological aspect of your body, when you're in a serving profession, when you're a helping professional, and how critically important it is to take care of yourself. It is not selfish, it is self-preservation. You've heard you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if you're exhausted, you're drained, you're experiencing compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma can lead to compassion fatigue, can lead to secondary traumatic stress, can lead to burnout. And when we're at the point of burnout, we lose these brilliant and passionate and hardworking and great people in professions because they're burnt out, which is also why co-care is so important, of creating that culture of caring about each other where you're working. So secondary traumatic stress, we can see some of these symptoms in here that we can experience when we're listening to someone's traumatic stories and we're seeing high levels of distress. In the aftermath, might have been a shooting, whatever it is with the mentees that you're working with. These are things that we as helping professionals can absolutely feel. And so if you start to see, just like when Dr. Perry's the indicators of stress, we can start to see these things. And I know before I knew all this, I had some of these on here, and so this taking care of yourself really on a daily basis, I would encourage micro steps. We'll have a couple slides on that a little bit later. Little things that you can do throughout your day, little things. 5 minutes, 2 minutes. One of mine is going outside and walking barefoot on the grass. All the healing energy from Mother Earth going through the soles of my feet. There's so many, many, many micro things that all of us can do throughout our day, personally and professionally, to support our well-being. And any questions? I'd love to have this be organic. Anybody wants to come off mute and ask any questions on any of the slides, chat box, I want this to feel like it's with you and not to you or for you, but it's rather with you. So trauma, case managers, mentors, nurses, teachers, social workers, when we look at behavior as a sign, behavior speaks to us. We can tell, especially when you can tell by behavior, oh, they're in their amygdala right now. They're not accessing their prefrontal cortex, which is where right here behind the forehead, that's where we have the top column up there. That's where we have all of our executive functions. So our capacity to learn, teachers, our self-regulation, our emotional control, our logic, it's all right here in the prefrontal cortex. And the neocortex is at the top of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is here. However, if you have a child, youth, adult, elder that doesn't feel safe, perceived and certainly real, but even perceived, the body perceives they're not safe, everything's going into survival mode. Everything is draining from the executive functions in the prefrontal cortex into the amygdala. And that individual is now in fight, flight, or freeze. So it's much like if a 2-year-old is having a tantrum, you can't talk them out of the tantrum. How can you soothe what they're experiencing, and then you can help support them? Same with any human being across the lifespan. If you can tell, people, if they didn't understand this pace of science lens, they could look at the behavior. Oh, they're rude, they're annoying, they're aggressive, they're lacking intelligence, they're out of control, they're anxious. They're in their amygdala. So I, as a helping professional, my responsibility is, how can I help them soothe that dysregulated brain, calm that anxiety, and regain access to the prefrontal cortex? Then we can have a conversation about whatever it is we need to have a conversation about. This is something that you could do individually. It's something the boys to men mentoring and women's to girls, to how you're going to name that mentoring. You could do it individually. You could do it as an organization, and it measures compassion satisfaction, compassion fatigue, and burnout. It's a great scale that is a self-assessment, and you self-report, and then it's got a section down at the bottom of helping yourself see where you are on this scale, this index of compassion fatigue, burnout, compassion satisfaction. So it's a wonderful tool for boys to men mentoring's consideration. So there's a mindful, and one of my best practices with slides, everybody I know is busy. So out of respect for very busy people, if there's a slide or a couple of slides that really speak to you and resonate and you want to share with your mentees, my best practice is that every slide that has content has an active hyperlink. So all you have to do is go to that slide and click it. You're going to go right to the source. That's so important to me. I don't want you to have to look and search and because you're busy. And so the 33 item scale self-report of frequencies of behavior that measure self-care mindfully, that mindful relaxation, physical care, self-compassion, supportive relationship, supportive structure, mindful awareness. So this is another tool for your consideration that you could do individually, and it's also a tool that your administration, your leadership could consider as an organization. So we're going to take our first breakout, and if you can please reflect on the impact of your work and secondary traumatic stress, how that can impact your well-being, and how we'll have a 6-minute breakout. Thank you, Tam, for managing that. And then when we come back, it'll be an invitation for a whole group share out. And please don't share with anyone else. You know, I'll ask if there's anything salient that you'd like to share from your breakout. Please don't share what anyone else shared, but rather if you'd like to share anything from what you reflected on during this, and then we will continue on. So I hope you have a meaningful breakout.
Dana, can you be more specific about what the discussion is? I'm sorry.
So if you can, yeah, absolutely. Great question. So if you can reflect on from what you've had reiterated or learned from the slides in learning objective number 1, how does the impact of being a mentor, serving your mentees, how can that impact your well-being? Vicarious trauma, secondary traumatic stress, compassion fatigue, just a reflection on who you are as a helping professional, as a mentor, and how you feel that impacts your own well-being.
Got it.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Great question. Anything salient that you would like to share that you shared during your breakout? And don't feel you have to. It's an invitation, voice, and choice.
Well, I'll say that I've been doing this a long time, and I've you know, walked a lot of kids through a lot of trauma, and you know, and I, you know, before tonight, I didn't really recognize that as vicarious trauma for myself, but I, you know, certainly one of my coping mechanisms, and I know Mac is the same, Craig McLean, who's the co-founder, and we use a lot of dark humor to get through some of this this trauma, you know, and I don't know if that's healthy or not, but it has been a way for us to you know, kind of shake it off, because we got to go back in and do more, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And humor is very healthy.
Okay, thank you.
Very healthy.
Not
Thank
yours,
God.
Joe. Not yours.
Not
Thank you so much, Joe.
I was actually told when I'm in the work with the boys that that's no place for humor, because I do have a very quick sense of humor, and they basically that's not appropriate, so I turn that off.
You know, I think it's just guessing here, because I don't have the experience you people do. I think it's different amongst adults, you know, like guys like us, than, you know, between us and youngsters. You know, you'd have to really be careful there. But otherwise, I think laughing is just great for you, particularly if you're carrying a lot of burdens like we just heard.
I'll tell you what, you come work with these young men in the kitchen and listen to their dark sense of humor. One of their favorite jokes is, what did the kid with no arms and no legs get for Christmas? The answer is cancer.
Mhm.
Okay? That's a pretty dark view of life.
That it doesn't get much darker than that, brother.
That didn't get much darker than that, but that's what those kids do to protect themselves while they're up here doing men's work.
Well, I've mastered the art of dark humor. But shifting from that in our conversation, we were talking about how on the weekends or even in the circle, there are times when a boy will bring up an issue and our own vicarious trauma will come to the surface. And what do we do with it and how do we handle it? And I know for myself, we were talking about, I've gotten choked up a few times when I'm telling my story about something and not hesitating to go ahead and express the tears or express the emotion, because I think that's part of healthy modeling. But even on the weekends, we do instruct the mentors that if you're doing work and you get triggered and the emotions are coming up,
Yeah.
then take yourself out and and let yourself be supported. And same thing when we're doing sword work and we see that a man's being triggered, to offer support and let him do kind of a clearing or whatever he needs to air that out. But I guess the point of the conversation is that just being aware that, yeah, these vicarious traumas of our own are going to come to the surface. And that's part of, I think, our training with each other is how to handle that. And, one way is, is you can make light of it, make some humor about it. And then there are other things that we can do too. So.
But as you said, one thing which I thought was very powerful was there are different types of humor. One that is for between mentors and between adults, and one that is with the kids. So there are two very different things.
It's a skill to not diminish the pain for this kid. It's not to minimize it, but also to maybe if that's something that you've dealt with, that I've dealt with, then maybe it's demonstrating that I've been able to overcome that pain. It's a slippery slope.
I'd like to say a couple of things to add into this, and I appreciate Dana, that you're putting this on and helping us create the space to have these conversations. It's really important, obviously, to our work. So thank you for helping create the space. The first, and this is outside of the breakout that we had, but I'm keenly aware of the cultural aspect, and I appreciated the way that you introduce yourself as an ally, specifically to the indigenous people. Speaking as a person of color, as a therapist, as a mentor among all of us here, I'm mindful of the cultural aspect and the cultural backgrounds that these boys are coming from, so having been very much in the Asian population, any kind of mention of feelings or mental health is very much shamed and stigmatized, and so it's quite liberating, to have these kind of open discussions. So I just wanted to throw that in there about cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, and also cultural trauma. So it's fascinating getting to hear all the different backgrounds that we all come from, as well as the backgrounds of the boys, and certainly how it hits us or how it might trigger us. And in turn, how we can then model that back of how we handle it or manage it or use humor or whatever else that has helped us keep healing, as Dana said. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Moses. And I've heard some wonderful, robust share outs here with each other. And Attila, when you shared, and I saw Steve raise his hand about modeling, that is so, and Moses just shared it. That is so important, is the modeling that we do as a helping professional. And it is, you'll see a slide here coming up from Dr. Brene Brown, who has done, because I've heard shame, Moses had shared shame and stigma. And Dr. Brene Brown is 20 years of research on shame and vulnerability. And my favorite quote is, the greatest measure of courage is vulnerability. And in our Western culture, I grew up, I went to one-room schoolhouses. I'm a farm girl from the Midwest. And I know I heard umpteen times, big boys don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about. That's a lie. Big boys should cry. And you'll see a slide in here lifting up the research. Crying is healthy. Crying is so good. And so literally the research proves you're releasing serotonin and dopamine in the brain and reducing the cortisol in the brain when you cry. And the cortisol is a stress hormone. And so I know we have two females here with Christine and myself, and everyone else are males. Please cry. And if you want to model that with your mentees in a circle, that's 100% up to all of you as an organization. I highly, highly, highly encourage crying. Jimmy V, his famous quote when he had cancer and was near death: you should laugh every day, you should cry every day. Said a couple more things. It's important. Crying's important.
Yeah.
Any other, some great, great insights? Anything else anyone would like to share?
Joe, you got something?
For I've been mentoring these young men for 6 years, going 6 years, and so I've seen a lot of their trauma, various types of trauma. So we, as a mentor, we have like a passion for these young men, and we feel that, and I know that I have to ensure I set some boundaries, make sure I set timelines so that I can de-stress, right? Process. For me, that's my faith, prayer, and also communicating with the mentors and the circles as well. That's one of the biggest things too there. And so that we can both, take on that weight, get it off of me a little bit, and we can both share it and then help this young man out. But yeah, definitely talking with my peers and my leaders, definitely that helps.
And Francisco, you lifted up healthy boundaries. So important. It's so important that we have healthy boundaries around us, especially when we're in highly activated situations or experiences. It's like I don't even sync my work emails to my cell phone at all. That when I'm off the grid, I'm off the grid. And so, there's little things that we can all do throughout our day to maximize our well-being, because we know we're going to be activated. I don't say triggered myself anymore. My youngest daughter had, actually Monday will be an anniversary, 2 active shooters at her place of employment, Navy Federal Credit Union. And so when I hear the language is important, which is one of the last videos, we won't watch it, but it's embedded, Dr. Masaru Emoto's work. And when I think of trigger, I think of a gun. And language is very, very, very important. So the more we learn, there's certain things I don't have in my vernacular anymore. And I also encourage people to consider removing from your vernacular, well, just get over it. We don't get over it. Trauma goes into the cells of our body. Trauma becomes part of our DNA. Trauma lives in our body. Rather, so we should never tell people, well, just get over it, because we don't. Rather, when we know we're activated, when we can tell, oh, my heart's starting to race, my palms are feeling sweaty, my stomach's feeling tense, my shoulders are starting to tighten up. Well, my body is going into a stress reaction. I know that. So I have all these little soothing strategies and calming techniques. Breathing is the most important. It's the most expedient you'll ever have as your whole life is breathing. Because if you don't breathe, you're not here. So my hope is that is when we leave each other around 8 p.m. this evening, that you'll have some more tools to add to your tool belt of how you build your life on behalf of your mentors, yourself, and with each other. So
Dana,
great
I just want
feedback.
to ask you, I want to ask you one
Sure.
thing. I've heard a lot of time, I've heard people say, as you did tonight, one needs to set clear boundaries. How do you do that?
For myself, I do a lot of things with healthy boundaries. So one example is, and Attila mentioned it, cultural humility, being culturally responsive. And as a community leader, as a community organizer, I'm very mindful of my healthy boundaries as a helping professional and a servant leader. And so I won't ever take on more than I think I can handle. I've learned how to say no. Took me a while to figure that out. But I've absolutely learned how to say no. And I have, when I'm off the grid, I'm off the grid. I do keep my cell phone on. I'll never change it my whole life because of the youth I've mentored over the decades. Sometimes they still reach out. So the healthy boundaries, Andrew, great question, is what is healthy for you throughout your professional your workday? What is healthy for you personally in your life? What is a healthy boundary for you in your organization? And so it's an individual response to thinking through my well-being is the most important thing to me all day long, every day. And so how I, as in we, how can we be really mindfully thoughtful? That's why this one is framed as mindfulness practices, self-care and self-compassion and self-love. Truly, grace. Grace is another one of my healthy boundaries. I give people a lot of grace because if I look around, everyone I know is hurting. Everyone I know is healing. Everyone here and not here understands a broken heart. And my heart's wisdom feels that many of you are helping mentor these youth, possibly their families, that are dealing with excruciating traumas, chronic traumas, and we're still within systems, cross-sector and social ecological model. They're slowly transforming, but that's not the norm. And so how can you, Andrew, each of you here, when you're thinking mindfully about your day, what's a healthy boundary? If you're activated and you're having a really tough day, your healthy boundary, and I think Tom mentioned it, or maybe Attila mentioned it, and this is part of co-care, say, hey, I need to go for a walk. I need to take a half hour. I need to take a half a day. Whatever the culture of Boys to Men mentoring is that helps support healthy boundaries as an organization and support you individually, because you're the expert in your own life. Every one of you are the expert in your own life. So you know what brings you a sense of peace within. You know what feels right to you. I've heard faith. I've heard some different strategies already. So is that helpful, Andrew?
Well, it sounds like you're saying all of the healthy boundaries are internal. It's nothing that's spoken. Because I was wondering if I'm about to get to a group with Boys to Men and there are four advisors or counselors and 10 kids, is anything spoken about that among the counselors or among the whole group, or is that something that's silent?
That's a great question, man. If you choose to, I would consider having that as part. Is it a talking circle?
Yes.
Consider asking that very question. What does healthy boundaries mean to you? And go around the talking circle. And talking circles, it's voice or choice, it's pass or share. That's part of being trauma responsive. Yeah, and have conversations with your colleagues, have conversations with your friends. What does healthy boundaries mean to you? Another healthy boundary I have a firewall on social media because we get a steady stream of Facebook and email and text messages and Snapchat and TikTok and some that I ask some millennials, some that I'm not even mentioning, like a steady stream. I don't watch the news. That's another one of my healthy boundaries because it's too toxic. It's too brimming with sensationalism and negativity. I find my sources that I trust because I do feel knowledgeable of what's happening in the world, locally, whatever. But I have some pretty firm, healthy boundaries for me because the work, we love our work, we work hard, and it's not easy.
Andrew,
When, please share.
Yes, are you asking what are healthy boundaries, or are you asking how to set boundaries? Because maybe I'm not clear on that.
So I would encourage, well, I think it's a both and. I think it's individually thinking about it as a person, as a
I was just
personally.
asking for clarity on his question so that way we could focus in on what it is that he's asking for.
Actually, both.
Both. Okay.
Okay.
If I may, Andrew, when it comes to the circles, right? I'm working with youth, I'm in different various groups, so I want to be able to help them, but I need them to help me help them. So one way I do that is simply, hey, look, guys, you have access to me. We're outside of this circle. However, do not call me past 10 p.m., boys. If you call me past 10 p.m., it better be an emergency. You may not get an answer. That's one boundary to keep them from, because they have access to me, and I want them to reach out. That's one simple way that I can make sure, hey, I get my rest because I need it tomorrow. And that's just one simple way, yeah. So that's for me.
The way that I look at boundaries in general is that it's a rule that I set for myself that I can do something about. Like what Francisco was saying is that, he said, don't call me past this time. And they can decide to cross that boundary or not cross that boundary. And the actionable item is, I'm not going to pick up, right? And so that is what I'm doing for myself. And so where it crosses the line of like boundary to control is that don't call me past 10 o'clock. And so that's controlling behavior where I'm saying you're not allowed to do a thing, as opposed to saying, this is what I'm going to do if you cross this line that I've set. This is a rule from me, right? So that's the way that I look at a boundary.
Right, but I'm thinking if anyone were to call after 10, it could very easily be an emergency.
Right, and that's going to be the line that is crossed, and you can decide what to do from there. And if you allow, so we can break our own rules, right? I think that's the important thing, is that how hard are your boundaries and how loose are your boundaries?
Yeah, so, and like I said, I let the boys know, of course, hey, don't call me past 10. If you call me past 10, it better be an emergency, right?
Right.
Right
I'm also
I am gonna answer, maybe not the first time, but if it's an emergency, they're probably gonna try to call me again, because I gotta wake up to hear it, right?
Right. Well, and as adults, if adults have questions about boundaries, setting them or what they are, I know that when I was in 7th grade, I did not understand boundaries. So I'm not sure how you explain that to a 12-year-old.
I'll take a stab at this. It's a really fantastic question, Andrew. And we could do a whole series about healthy boundaries and how to create them and how to discuss them. So For me, I think part of the relevancy to this space is having awareness of your capacity for how much you can take on. And without awareness of knowing how much you can take on physically, emotionally, psychologically, relationally, all these different types of boundary settings that you're able to know, okay, today I can handle so much. Maybe tomorrow I can handle some more. But it's having the awareness of how much capacity you're able to take on in any given moment, in any given group, in any given situation, day, week, so on and so forth. So for me, it starts with just having an awareness of how much you can handle in any given moment. And going back to what Tina was saying about knowing when it becomes toxic to you and where that line is for yourself, where your, say, threshold of pain, so to speak, right? Where you want to draw that line for yourself. So for Cisco, he's saying 10 o'clock. That becomes my time. But there's so many different layers to your question. So it really is a fantastic question. But awareness of your capacity for how much you can handle in any given moment, I'd say that's kind of an umbrella place to start.
Yeah, sounds like we could have another workshop on just boundary setting. But I will redirect it back to Dana. Just respect everyone's time.
Thank
Dana,
Thank you.
please.
Yep. Thank you so much. So thank you. That was a robust dialogue. It was wonderful. So how do we deepen understanding of our physiologically through that holistic lens of well-being? So when I had mentioned earlier about the neurological aspect, so these are PET scans, which are snapshots of
Sorry, Dan, it looks like you got.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So this is an image of PET scans, which are a snapshot of inactivity in the brain. When we were chatting earlier on the slide of the 5 parts of PACE science, and I brought up neurobiology, if you look at the abused brain on the right and the color-coded bar, red and yellow most active, purple and black least active, you see at the top of that brain on the abused brain, that's the prefrontal cortex. And the 2 circles there on the abused brain, that barely, the left circle isn't even touching the prefrontal cortex. The right circle is a sliver of purple touching the prefrontal cortex. So that Romanian orphan is absolutely in fight, flight, or freeze in their amygdala. Conversely, all of us, maybe not if you have Alzheimer's or dementia, so the vast majority of humanity, we can help optimize ourselves with having a healthy brain. Our brain is neuroplastic. We can add gray matter to our brain. When we get to the 3rd and 4th learning objectives, there'll be a lot of tools in there that will help deepen that understanding. So this was a video that on your list that Tom shared with you, and it's the transformational power of gratitude, and it includes there's a neuron up in our prefrontal cortex that's a pure neuron of altruism. Our bodies literally want to be of service. Altruism, as you all know, it's giving back without asking for a single thing in return. That really science and research has proven. And so in this video, Harvard University did a research study on 41 days that people looked for 3 to 5 things a day that they wrote down that they were grateful for. And then super easy the first several days, all the things that we're grateful for. However, you start to get about day 20, 25, because you can't repeat anything. You're looking for things to be grateful for. And what the Harvard research proved is literally after that 41-day period, they did brain scans And they saw the gray matter that was added to the brains simply by being grateful. Now, I would never want to say that our mentees that are enduring chronic trauma, going through horrific things, that might be harder stretch for them. What are you grateful for when they really have a lot of challenges in their life? Absolutely, we can plant seeds about it. This, I think, is a lot for the helping professionals of how powerful being grateful is. And this is from Berkeley, and it shows the mind-body relationship, that mind-body connectivity from in this infographic. And you could see here that our relationships, when the research that Berkeley Center has done has found that gratitude is good for our bodies, our minds. We're more forgiving, we're less lonely, we're more helpful and generous. Really is helping our mind with the higher levels of positive emotions. We're feeling more joy, we're more alert, we're more awake. Our body has stronger immune systems, lower blood pressure, lower risk of heart attacks, all from being grateful. And this one is from feeling overwhelmed, that when I mentioned earlier about micro steps, little tiny things that you can do throughout your day. I live by my calendar, and I block little, I try not to have back-to-back meetings. I try to have a 15-minute window. It's one of my healthy boundaries in between, if at all possible, for that little break. There's so many ways that we can, this article will show a lot of those little micro steps that you can do. The intention, just waking up in the morning and breathing deeply, setting that intention for the day. Neuroscience with breathing, just as little as 60 to 90 seconds by focusing on our breath deep. When Tom led the body scan, the breathing at the beginning, that was a micro step that absolutely grounded all of us being here together this evening. Really, our bodies can grow resilient muscles. And so, and then the science behind all of this. It's exciting to see the science and the research that is happening. So this is the science of hope. And hope, now that neuroscientists are really looking at the science behind hope, when we are feeling hopeful, we really can release a lot of serotonin and dopamine, and can block pain, accelerate our healing process. We're releasing these neurochemicals, and it absolutely is helping our brain come back to a place of recovery and well-being. Casey Gwynn, Dr. Casey Gwynn, Hope Rising, How the Science of Hope Can Change Your Life. And this book provides maybe you consider doing a book study with your mentees, I don't know. But this study, what they show 2,000 published studies, including their own research. And it really provides a roadmap to measure hope in your life, and for our mentees that may feel they've been robbed of hope in their life. And we know suicide completion is gun violence is the leading cause of death, ages 10 to 25. Suicide completion is the second leading cause of death, ages 10 to 25. And 10 years old is fifth grade. So we also have seen a lot of research coming out now about isolation in elders that are isolated, how damaging that is. So it's so important for all of us as helping professionals that we're very aware of these sciences and these research that can support our well-being, our healthy boundaries, etc. I am trained, a national trainer in HeartMath Institute, and on the National Coherence Advantage. This is a video that was on the list that Tom shared with you. Fascinating. It was an epiphany for me when I found out about HeartMath Institute, HEART Math Institute in 2005. The brain in our heart is far greater than the brain in our head. The brain in our heart, it is the first organ in utero. And we have access to 40,000 neurodendrites, which are brain cells around our heart. You can do just a 3-minute heart-focused breathing. They have different breathing techniques, just 3 minutes a day. 30 years of research proving when you put your energy, your intention into the brain and your heart, you are actually accessing up to 1,400 neurotransmitters in the brain. releasing serotonin and dopamine in the brain, and access to the 40,000 neurodendrites, the brain cells around the heart. The brain and the heart communicates far more from the heart to the brain than vice versa. The brain and the heart extends 3 feet, energetically extends 3 feet around us. The brain in the head extends 1 inch away. Absolutely fascinating. So this is the science of the heart. HeartMath Institute. That link will, this link takes you to that video. This link here takes you to the HeartMath Institute website. And this is what you're doing. You are literally rewiring your brain. That's what their research has proven of over 30 years and thousands and thousands and thousands of people globally. They're actually even doing some research now with trees and the interconnectivity of trees. You know, they have a whole communication system underneath the ground, underneath Mother Earth. They're such a cutting edge organization, HeartMath Institute. So Dr. Stuart Sankar, he's Canada's leading in the theory of self-regulation. And when I saw this quote years ago, it really spoke to me. And when I, put into practice pace of science on a daily basis, I completely look at behavior differently. Because if we're treating behavior like misbehavior, we're actually punishing. So then well-intentioned people are re-traumatizing already traumatized people. When we treat stress behavior as anxiety and stress, then we can be a helping professional. And again, 0% of this is about people not being held accountable. The big aha, hopefully, is that where are they in their brain right now? Are they in their amygdala, where they've lost access to logic and reasoning, emotional control, and self-regulation? Then my opportunity is with a calm voice, a soothed tone, giving them a couple options. I see you're frustrated. You want to go for a walk. Should we go get a drink of water? Something that grounds them, that starts to soothe that dysregulation and helps them regain access to the prefrontal cortex. And then we can have a conversation about whatever it is that the behavior was. So we're going to have our second breakout. If you can share a key takeaway with each other, how did any of these slides expand your understanding of how the physiological aspects of what's happening in our brain neurologically can impact our well-being? And I hope you have a wonderful breakout. Salient you'd like to share? Welcome back. Anyone have anything salient that you'd like to share that you talked about during your breakout about how physiologically can impact your well-being? And you don't have to. It's pass or share, voice or choice.
I had one that I wanted to share.
Okay.
I was speaking to Franco about it. It was more about hope, and I'm not sure if you probably are familiar with like that. I think there was like a study that they did with like rats, right? Where they went to like, I think they put rats in a bucket to see how long they would swim, and after a couple minutes they would get tired and die. But they did another part where they would take some out after a few minutes, so they'd save them. They'd put them back in there, and then they would swim for like 3 days because they had the hope that somebody was going to come and save them.
Aww.
So just, poor rats, right? It sucks that they had to go through that, but just kind of that example of what hope can do to somebody, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fascinating, Angel. Thank you for being my teacher. I hadn't heard of that study. And Christine, I saw your hand go up. Open your unmute, please.
Yes. So mine was on the heart brain. I thought that it was just fascinating that you were talking about how much the magnitude that it affects the brain, because we were always taught the opposite, that the brain controls everything. So just that little snippet there, it was mind-blowing to me. And I love that. I love it so much because we feel so much from there. From our heart chakra, from that heart space.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but to see it, see the science behind it was.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, it was an aha moment it was transformational. We learn these things in life and they change our trajectory of our path. And think about it. We all grew up with speak from your heart, listen to your heart. We've got these sayings out there, these slogans. Well, Heart Math, 30 years of research proves it.
Yeah, for boxers in the 12th round, they ain't going nowhere. They don't got heart.
Right.
Because
their brain's telling them to stop.
Yeah, I have something to share. So this the heart study that you shared about brought me back to an experience that I had while working at a mental health clinic. One of her psychiatrists, he was in his 80s. His wife passed away, and he just had such a hard time through that grief, and he was diagnosed with broken heart syndrome, and he passed away soon after his wife had, and just that before that he was all healthy, he was fine, he was showing up to, he was our number one in attendance, but that one loss, such a big loss, impacted him so bad that he literally died from that sorrow, from that grief and sadness. And
yeah. Bless you for sharing. Now they're back together. Anyone else? Or we have 2 more learning objectives and we're done in about 35 minutes. So is it okay if we keep moving on? And then anyone, please, we were going to take a self-care break, but it was so robust after learning objective number 1. Get up and go get water, tea, probably not coffee at this time of night, whatever visit the restroom, get some fresh air, take care of yourself. So please step away if you feel you need to. And if it's okay, we'll keep on moving. Okay. So how do we apply this? What are some mindfulness practices and soothing strategies that you can add to your tool belt of how you build your life? And these are some, certainly non-exhaustive, but some healing-centered self-care practices. So we know that controlled breathing calms your brain. You think of Lamaze when a mom is going to be given birth and helps her through delivery. Truly, just 6 deep, long breaths will help soothe dysregulation and calm anxiety. If any of your youth, if any of your peers, you can tell by their behavior they're activated, say, please breathe. Would you like to breathe with me? Let's just have 6 deep, long breaths together, because your entire life, that is your most expedient soothing strategy you will ever have, is deep, intentional breathing. And if you look at a little baby, the way their belly breath, we as adults, we don't have to think about breathing. It's in the reptilium, in the brainstem. We don't have to think about digestion. We don't have to think about blood circulation. We don't have to think about breathing. It's automatic in the miracle of our bodies. So we can tend to be shallow breathers because we don't have to think about it. So if you are ever anxious or activated, deep, long, intentional breaths are absolutely going to help your well-being. This is absolutely one of my self-care practices, and I've been doing it so many years, I find that my body actually craves it. As I mentioned before, we're in such a steady stream in the social media platforms. There's myriad ways, which is always there. It's always reverberating energy, and we're just energy. That's always there. And I need times, no laptop, no TV, the phone is turned down, even if it's only 5 minutes. And this article shows how silence is really good at relieving stress and tension in your body. Mother Earth has myriad ways of helping us. The sounds of nature. There's so many YouTubes out there that are waterfalls or campfires or a rainstorm or ocean waves and birds and trees, and Mother Earth has so many ways that she is providing for all of us to have that well-being. These are awesome. I highly encourage, there's science and research that came out a while back that doodling is really healthy. So if you have any mentees that are doodling, that's a good thing, because they actually are paying more attention to you than if they are not allowed to doodle. So anything we do with repetition, tapping, drumming, coloring, doodling, anything that we do with repetition is helping our brain soothe anxiety. So I always encourage helping professionals to have some of these and some colored pencils. And you can get these free. You can download them online in a plethora of places. You can absolutely buy little coloring books and make copies of them at Target, at Walmart, at Barnes and Noble. This is a fantastic strategy if you have grandchildren or children, it's something happened in the home and people are stressed out. Hey, let's color together. You're actually soothing dysregulation. I'm not going to click on this one when you have the slide deck. This is, you can go, this is through Explore Science. And this is they have hundreds of real-time video cams. This one happens to be in a Cayman Reef. And what was so cool about it when I found it, that little up on the upper left-hand corner where it says exhale and inhale, when you click on that link, that takes you right into that live cam. And you literally, this could be an activity that you'd have to be virtual and digital with your youth, your mentees. It'd be a great way to consider starting a business meeting for 30 seconds to do something like this. There's a plethora of them. There, you can watch bears up in getting salmon. You can watch in the ocean. You can watch in the rivers, on land. Little kitties, little doggies, little puppies. I mean, explore.org is a fabulous, and all of them are live video cams. They're absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. I learned about it from a science teacher. So meditation, we know, all of us know the benefits of meditation. You don't have to sit in the lotus pose. Meditation, there's profound benefits with really reducing your stress and providing that sense of inner ease and calm within, increasing your blood flow, reducing feelings of depression and anxiety, increasing your energy, helping control your thoughts because you're being mindful and you're being present. Three reasons we talked earlier about this, and I wanted to make sure all of you had some of the science and the research behind it. And crying is exceptionally beneficial as a self-care practice. I had something really awful happen yesterday, and I sobbed my eyes out last night, and so I actually woke up feeling a little better today. And so crying, I did a training up in San Fernando Valley for about 200 people at a Boys and Girls Club. And it was a couple of weeks after that horrific helicopter crash that Kobe Bryant and Gigi and the other individuals tragically lost their lives. And the individual that asked me to come up and do the training had shared that LA was just reeling in grief. And so someone mentioned it earlier after the first breakout, it's so important to acknowledge and meet people where they are. And so I honored, we had a minute of silence for Kobe and Gigi and all the tragic losses. And before we had the minute of silence, I gently shared how crying is so beneficial. And I tried to look at as many, because it was in person, as many women as I could in the room. And I said, I told them about that lie I heard so many times growing up, big boys don't cry. And I looked at as many women as I could. And I said, please, all the women in this room, please create spaces for your sons, your brothers, your husbands, your fathers, your grandfathers, the coaches, the men in your life. Create a safe space for them to be vulnerable and cry with you. It really, when we suppress that internalized depression, when we suppress our emotions, we can lead to all kinds of serious health issues. So you're actually healing yourself by helping yourself heal by crying. This quote speaks to me your whole life. You're never going to talk to anyone else more than you talk to yourself in your head. And so choosing self-care, choosing self-compassion, choosing grace, be kind with yourself. Okay, we're going to have our third breakout. Excuse me. Please reflect on your mindfulness practices and soothing strategies you already, integrate throughout your day. Some mindfulness What are some mindfulness practices, soothing strategies that you're applying in your own life? Don't feel you have to, if anyone would like to.
I thank Joshua for reminding me the power of sunrises and sunsets. So I've added that to my list.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll share. So after, so 20 years of having started a meditation practice on my New Year's resolution, a few years ago, my wife got me a subscription to an app called Calm that some of you probably know.
Yeah.
And it's just been great to have. It's just, there's all kinds of daily ones, and there's some that are just guided meditation, some that are more just life lessons. And so I'll do when I walk the dog in the morning, I'll listen to one, which, as Andrew questioned, with my eyes open. I'm not closing my eyes and meditating. It's more of a being present and listening. And it's just been a great way to know that I've got that to start the day. It's just a moment to center and feel myself in my body and be, feel the air in my face and, be outside, but also be thinking and not loud. Because, I used to just jump right into, a podcast or a phone call or something. And this forces me to spend some time just being in my body and, relaxing and taking some breaths. And it's just really been a great way to start the day.
Yeah, Calm app. What a fabulous way to start your day, Jim. To be so present and mindful out in nature and with your doggy, and beautiful way to start your day. Headspace is another one that's an app that folks may be familiar with. There's some great apps out there. Some cost money, some don't. So you can do a little research. And I was sharing with Tom when we were waiting, Eckhart Tolle, Tolle. I don't know if you've heard of him, The Power of Now. Fabulous book, read it in 1998, another epiphany for me. And we never have more than this moment, ever, your whole life. You never have more than right now. And so much, Dr. Dispenza says we have roughly, his research, 80,000 thoughts a day, and up to 80% of them can be negative or redundant. We're either regretting something from the past or we're fearing something from the future. And then we're in this swirling in all of this in our brain. If we could just breathe and like a Calm app, get ourselves grounded and centered and present. Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I'll jump in. And this wasn't part of our breakout, but building off of what you're talking about, we're from what I can tell, living in a society that actively gets us out of our bodies, disconnected from our bodies. So the things that we do to build connection with ourselves, to pay attention to listen to our bodies, and something for myself is finding what works for me, just being in a constant practice of what works for me and what feels good to me, and working past all the negative self-talk and everything, and just got to push through and so on and so forth. Like you were saying, Dana, it's important to stop, listen, reflect, and build a connection with yourself, with your body, your physiology, and take care of yourself that way.
Absolutely. So important. And thank you, Tam and Joe, for helping out there with Brian's question. You are appreciated. Okay, we're at 7:44. I know you in Texas are going to be coming up on 10 o'clock. I want to respect your time. You in Arizona coming up on 9 p.m. So can we go ahead and do the last learning objective? And then ideally there's a little time to have a little big group share out. And we absolutely want to end on time out of respect of every one of you.
Go ahead.
Okay. So how do we create this culture of care in boys to men? This is what you're doing. You're creating a culture of safety, trust, and connectedness. The epicenter of this entire Pace of Science movement is safety, when they feel safe because they trust you. So it's through relationships. We are harmed in relationships. We are healed through relationships. You are the medicine. So this is a staff wellness. How can we build a culture of health that embodies healing-centered practices, that's very values-based, that really talks about teamwork? I've heard some aspects in the whole group share out tonight. And then I want to honor again the very first time that I ever heard Franco and Tom at NCRC in Southeast. I was blown away with the culture of boys to men. So I do feel you're already doing a lot of these. Hopefully there's some things within here like, oh, we could expand on that. This is Dr. Masaru Emoto. Life-changing for me. He is a Japanese researcher who and he's a photographer. I grew up in domestic violence, and when I first saw this, and I can still feel it, when I first saw this, I sobbed. And what he proved, for those of you that haven't been able to watch the video yet, I highly encourage it. It's your intention behind your words you choose. Your self-talk, your verbal talk. What's your intention behind your words? His research proves we have the power to harm ourselves through our intention of our words. We have the power to help ourselves on our healing journey through the intention of our words. How he did that, he would take words like compassion or grace or love, Mother Teresa, and much with like the brain and the heart, he would put love behind those words. He'd say them out loud. He'd write them on a piece of paper. He'd put a jar of water on them, and he'd put them in a freezer. And much like when you have ice cube trays, and they're obviously liquid water when they go in the freezer, and they start to crystalline, he would take a picture. He also did it with an angry, venomous, where he really put that hatred, that anger behind his words, like, you make me sick, I will kill you, and put the anger behind it. Wrote it down, said it out loud, put a jar of water on it, put it in the freezer, and when it started to crystalline, he would take pictures of it. And that's what this 3-minute, there's hours and hours and hours on YouTube. I love this one because I love the music of it so much. But what he proved is through our intention behind our prayer, our words, music has the power to harm or heal. Mother Earth is roughly 60% water. We are roughly 60% water. Our brain is roughly 80% water. And when I saw the intention, when I saw this, when I learned about him, it changed me because it just made me realize, what I went through as a little girl and a teenager. And now, how I'm very mindful of my intention behind the words that I choose. I love her, Dr. Brene Brown, 20 years, of research on shame and vulnerability. And as she shared, there's no right or wrong way to be empathetic, just listening, holding space, withholding judgment, being that emotional connection, which people can feel. Your mentees are street smart. They can tell in a couple seconds if you're authentic, you're real, or you're not. And so that emotional connection that you have with your mentees, I'm really communicating, you're not alone. How do we humanize all of our spaces together? And so Megan Devine watched her. She's got the best of the ones that I've seen, the best online grief community, refuge in grief. This is another video that Tom shared with you. So Megan Devine watched her healthy partner drown 3 months shy of their 40th birthday. She was so paralyzed in her grief. She quit her job, her career that day. On her healing journey, she became a grief psychotherapist. And so this, about a 6-minute video, says, how do you help a grieving friend? All of us are grieving. Every single one of us here are no broken heart. Every single one of us here have loved ones in heaven. And so what her biggest message that she wanted to impart was, you help a grieving friend by acknowledging they're in pain and let them be in pain. We cannot talk people out of their pain. So acknowledging is something really powerful that you can do with each other, with you and your loved ones, and certainly with your mentees. This is her book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay. Grief is not linear, and we can get activated all over again, certainly when there's anniversaries, etc. And we're all grieving. We all understand a broken heart. So I don't know if you do book studies. This could also be a really fascinating one, just like what happened to you with Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And I don't believe we're kind of a grief. Western culture is kind of a grief adverse. We don't talk about it a lot. We expect people to get over it. You know, there's just a lot of challenges with, and nobody's going to get out of here alive. None of us. No one's getting out of here alive. So how can we humanize all of our spaces together with this common humanity of the cycle of life, birth and death? I mentioned that before. My favorite quote: "Our most accurate measurement of courage is being vulnerable." So, and I've heard it in the group share outs. So for any of you mentors that are modeling vulnerability with your mentees, you are being incredibly courageous, and you're helping them see authenticity, and you're helping deepen the trusted relationships you already have. You are the medicine. Dr. Christina Bethel, this is research that came out of March 2019, the Positive Childhood Experiences Study. And it's only 7 questions. She has become a dear friend. And because with the ACE questionnaire, which I would only give age appropriate, the resilience questionnaire, which is good, but it's all about individual. Tom and I were talking in the break about rugged individualism, which is kind of a cultural norm here in the Western U.S., Western culture, when really we need each other. You are the medicine. Your relationship that you have with your mentees is the medicine. So leveraging the power of your trusted relationships, that's how we can nurture each other. And here are the 7 questions. You could click on that link there and actually go back to the entire Positive Childhood Experiences research. And so you can see by these 7 questions how important you are as mentors, because at least 2 non-parent adults took a genuine interest. And you are the medicine. So truly, it's not easy what you do, and bless you for what you do with helping all these wonderful youth. And so we're not born resilient. We have the capacity to be resilient. We need, just like we're born with 9 multiple intelligences, kind of nature versus nurture, what kind of source, where are people born? There's just so many layers. That's why it needs to be this holistic lens of pace of science. And so when we have a safe, stable, nurturing relationship, which is you, then you're really helping them with accessing their self-regulation and increasing positive health and protective factors. I learned just about a month ago about vicarious resilience. And I know that's a lot of text on one page. I just wanted you to have a visual. You could go to the actual scale down there at the bottom. Dr. Vanessa Rodriguez presented on vicarious trauma and vicarious resilience at our last San Diego Trauma Informed Guide Team membership meeting. And vicarious resilience, truly spend some time at your convenience looking at these, because what she was sharing, all of us as helping professionals experience vicarious trauma because we're human and we care. So when we look at who we serve and how they teach us how they are able to be resilient in the face of these chronic traumas, we're inspired by that capacity they have to persevere. We're more hopeful that people can heal and recover from traumas. We're focusing on their strengths. So there's some wonderful, in these 27 aspects, there's some wonderful, wonderful ways that we can reframe how we look at vicarious trauma, co-care with an organization, and absolutely on behalf of the mentees that you're blessed to serve. So we're going to go into our last breakout. If you can please share examples. And you know what, Tom? We have 6 minutes left. So I think, what are your thoughts, Tom? Do you want to have a shorter breakout to come back for whole group? Do you want to just use the 6 minutes and come back to say, we wish everyone well? What would be your discernment?
Oops, sorry. How about we just have the discussion here right now?
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to come off so we can see each other. Please share some examples of how Boys to Men Mentoring supports and nurtures a culture of co-care.
Well, I'll just say thank you, Dana Brown.
Absolutely.
You know, I think you know, the way that you contextualized and you know, presented is really affirming of the culture at Boys to Men. Our vulnerability is our courage. Well, we've got a bunch of courageous men here that step into that arena every day with their vulnerability to set the bar and to give permission for the boys. And so philosophically, everything that you're presenting is resonating and affirming so much of what we're already doing. And as far as the co-care for culture and for one another, it's a special breed of cat that's drawn to do this work, you know, and there's a bunch of self-aware guys, you know, that are showing up to do this, and the consciousness and the love and the care that we have for one another and demonstrate for one another. I think, you know, look, it's not some sort of, you know, nirvana, but it certainly is a healthy place where I think people feel safe and feel free to share their feelings and talk about what's going on with them, and when they and the self-awareness of knowing when they're off and owning it, and not, and you know, and not projecting and judging others, but looking at themselves to make sure that you know, the safety is maintained. And anyway, that's been my experience with these wonderful men.
Well, Joe, you beautifully articulated showing up your authentic self. So kudos to the leadership at Boys to Men Mentoring for nurturing that, because that's not always the norm out there. And so thank you. Beautiful, beautiful what you shared.
Yeah.
Anyone else like to share?
I just want to throw in, it's like that one slide to summarize it all for me on what we do and how we do it. It's create safety, trust, and connectedness. And if any mentor just remembers that's our objective and that's what we're going towards, then if they're connected to their heart, it's just going to come out naturally. And they're going to be fully present and connected with the boys and be able to guide the whole process. But yeah, I mean, we know that as mentors, we're also healing an aspect of ourselves. And that's the kind of co-creativeness of the whole process in being a mentor. But thank you, Dana. You really, you nailed it.
Oh, bless you, bless you. I love this group. I tell people about Boys to Men Mentoring. You're awesome human beings. I feel humbled and grateful to be in your presence.
Likewise.
I have a question, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we as mentors, from your perspective, Dana, empathize? We're talking about empathy and sympathy in that video that you had shared with us. How can we genuinely empathize with this young man who are going through so much trauma that we have no idea how it feels like, and we can't really fathom the level of pain that they're dealing with, but to still show up as empathetically as possible without being able to really tap into that emotion that they're feeling.
Yeah, so that what comes to mind, Franco, great question, was the how do you help a grieving friend? And acknowledgement. And as you know, your mentees are so street smart. They're gonna know if you're authentic or you're not authentic in seconds. And you showing up your authentic self and looking them in the eye and seeing them. Now, I know in some cultures, you know, I'm mindful of that also, that culturally you don't do that. Majority you do. Just loving them, sending that energy from the brain in your heart. You don't have to say, I love you. I'm not saying that. But your energy is love. And it's not thinking as much about what they're experiencing. It's feeling with them. I see you're in pain. Please know I'm here. I care about you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here confidentially. You know, I know you got your mandated reporting and all that, but it's all about relationships. It's all about, every bit of this is about relationships. How do we humanize? How do we show up our authentic self? I mean, how do we create space for our mentees to show up their authentic self? No microaggressions, no raised eyebrows. You know, we have to be self-aware and self-reflection that we're going to show up authentic, calm, peaceful, loving energy. And we're at 8, and I want to hear more, but it's 10 o'clock and 9 o'clock and 8 o'clock. So I'm very, very mindful of your time, especially the people in Texas. So, gosh, this was such a joy, and much love and much light surrounding each of you and your loved ones. Truly bless you for what you do, because my heart feels that you are transforming futures. I feel you're saving lives. So truly, bless you. For some of these mentees, you may be that one trusted adult. What you do is so important. Bless you. And thank you. And sleep well and go do something peaceful and well-being for the rest of your evening.
Thank you,
Bravo,
Dana. That was
Thank you,
awesome.
Dana.
Yep.
Thank you, Dana.
No,
As we
no.
say,
Thank you.
Claps for all of
Thank
you.
you.
hang loose.